So I've already made a number of videos about this dystopian bill, Bill C-63 in Canada, a bill whose goal is to intimidate every Canadian into avoiding saying anything remotely politically incorrect in Canada. And this is so obvious that even arch-feminist Margaret Atwood, author of The Handmaid's Tale, is sounding the alarm about it. Here's the headline: Orwellian. Margaret Atwood, Elon Musk sound alarm over Trudeau Liberals' Online Harms Act. And it says Justin Trudeau has finally managed to unite people from across the political spectrum against his Liberal government's Online Harms Act. And before we even get into the article, let me just give you a brief glimpse at how dystopian this bill is. So here's the future thought crime part of it. Fear of hate propaganda offense or hate crime. A person may, with the Attorney General's consent, lay an information before a provincial court judge if the person fears on reasonable grounds that another person will commit an offense. That would be like a hate speech, whatever they consider that to be. I think we have a pretty good idea. It's going to be anything that Justin Trudeau and far-left activists don't like. So that's anybody, by the way. Anybody can drag you into court anonymously also. Anonymously, you'll never know who the person is. They can have you dragged into court, not for something you've done, for something that maybe you'll do in the future, they think, maybe. That's right, they're employing mind reading now to see who's going to commit a future crime. And what would the future crime be? Free speech, of course, because you can't have that in Trudeau's Canada. And what might happen to you? Well, you'd get house arrest for 12 months. House arrest. Here, wear an electronic monitoring device. Return to and remain at their place of residence at specific times. Abstain from the consumption of drugs, of alcohol, or any other intoxicating substance. So for something that you haven't done, which in a free society wouldn't be a crime in any case, we're just talking about speaking your mind, they can have you under house arrest for a year, tell you that you can't have a beer. And then, of course, they can tell you that you can't use the internet anymore, all kinds of, they can basically just control your life for something that they think you might do, which again, in a free society, would not even be a crime in the first place. They also want to set up a digital safety commission, which can force you to be dragged into a human rights tribunal. This is not a court of law. This is not a criminal court. This is a civil court where there is no presumption of innocence. There is no guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. No, it's preponderance of evidence. It's just basically whatever the tribunal thinks. If they don't like your politics, well, I guess it's too bad for you. Oh, and by the way, rates of conviction in human rights tribunals, near 100%. But if you get dragged into that from an anonymous complaint, could be anybody, could be somebody who just got a grudge against you, somebody who doesn't like you at work, somebody who poured through your social media for the last 10 years to find that one thing they can take out of context that might be interpreted as hate speech. Well, guess what can happen? You could end up having to pay that person, that anonymous person. Again, maybe it's somebody who just doesn't like you. Maybe it's somebody who's got some financial troubles. Well, they can end up with compensation of up to $20,000. And of course, the government's going to want to rob you during this whole process as well. So you might have to pay them $50,000 as well. And then, of course, there's the future thought crime part of it. So you might end up in house arrest after that for a year as well. And let me make this clear. Any person can anonymously make a complaint against you. You'll never find out who it is and be personally rewarded with up to $20,000 for their trouble. Plus, you've got to pay for your lawyer's fees. How many thousands of dollars is that going to be? And this is all going to happen to you in a progressive, far leftist-dominated human rights tribunal, which is going to find you guilty. And let me just ask you, are you sure there's nothing in your long social media history that wasn't fine when you said it, but now, by today's standards, makes you new Hitler? Are you sure? So yeah, this is all totally dystopian, and Margaret Atwood is quite right. This is Orwellian. And kudos to her for being a principled liberal. She said, if this account of the bill is true, it's letters de cachet all over again. And what is that, letters de cachet? Well, that's like a letter signed by the king, I think pre-French Revolution, but a letter signed by the king to just imprison somebody who's inconvenient. Yeah, and there's millions of Canadians right now that Trudeau thinks are really inconvenient. But anyway, The possibilities for revenge, false accusations, plus thought crime stuff are so inviting. Trudeau's Orwellian Online Harms Bill. Jordan Peterson said about this, if even the mother of progressive feminists in Canada thinks that Bill C-63 is dangerous, then perhaps the rest of us might think twice as well. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. And there's a petition I'll show you at the end of this that you might want to sign up for. Elon Musk said, "This is insane," replying to a Not the Bee story on it. This is truly an insane, draconian, Orwellian bill. It will destroy free speech in Canada. If passed, the bill would amend the Canadian Human Rights Act to make it so anyone spreading hate speech, and what is hate speech in this bill? Well, it says that hate speech means the content of a communication that expresses detestation or vilification of an individual or group of individuals on the basis of a prohibited ground of discrimination. So what does that mean? Expresses detestation or vilification. Well, it means whatever the Human Rights Tribunal wants it to mean. And spoiler alert, it's gonna mean a lot. But here, thank goodness we've got a clarification. For greater certainty, the content of a communication does not express detestation or vilification for the purposes of subsection 8 solely because it expresses disdain or dislike, or it discredits, humiliates, hurts, or offends. So what exactly is the difference between detestation and humiliating or hurting, vilification and dislike? This is just totally subjective, and this is going to be left in the hands of activists. This will be in the hands of woke, progressive activists to interpret. Frankly, I personally don't trust them. So before I go check out Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. They have a petition, and you can say no to censorship by signing their petition. It says no Canadian should face an anonymous human rights complaint for what they have said. No Canadian should be hauled before a court or punished merely because somebody fears they will say something hateful. No Canadian should face life imprisonment for their expression. Yes, that's another part of it. Life in prison for hate speech. Canadians' online expression should not be censored unless it violates the criminal code. Canadians are calling upon Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, Arif Virani, and all parliamentarians to stop the Online Harms Act. So yeah, it is time to let your voice be heard. At the very least, just for the sake of the Senate, who will have to put their okay on this before it actually becomes law. Because if it does become law, that's the end of free speech in Canada. Anyway, please subscribe, like, and share. Subscribing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.